Hello, my friends and enemies. Glad you're here. This video was kind of a surprise because I just kind of saw the news and I was like, hey, might as well make a video on it. So here we are. So the biggest thing is going to be there's a lot of news surrounding obviously Peter Jackson's involvement with the Lord of the Rings potential movies that are coming out through Embracer Group, through New Line Cinema, and all those folks. Um, there's also a lot of information about how Peter Jackson's involvement with The Hobbit didn't go so well. And I've been only able to gather snippets of details here and there to kind of pick it together to kind of like what actually happened. But as far as I can tell, for Peter Jackson's involvement with The Hobbit, was kind of a late in the game. So he kind of came in a little bit later when they were already in the middle of things. Um, and the quality wasn't necessarily what he wanted to go with. But as far as I'm aware, he also didn't even really want to do The Hobbit. But it was kind of like, hey, you need to do it because you did the Lord of the Rings and it was really really good. But a lot of the stuff like the CGI, the overhaul of CGI, the lower quality visual effect or the practical effects, um, that kind of stuff was kind of a bit of a surprise. Because I mean he did such a phenomenal job with the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King. Um, we weren't expecting it to be so CGI filled as it was, and we weren't expecting the story to be more or less lackluster. So, it, the way it got pulled into three films, I could see it maybe have been in two if you cut all the excess stuff out. But The Hobbit kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't particularly care for it. Um, I used to like it, but then the more I watched it, because I used to watch it every year, same time, I'd have a full day marathon of, I'd watch The Hobbit 1, 2, and 3, and then I'd watch Lord of the Rings 1, 2, and 3 all in one sitting. And it was basically just pizza and wine. My wife and I would just sit down and just devour all of it. And just watch them, watch them, watch them. And then I finally got to the point where it was like, yeah, I know I'm hardcore for watching 21 and a half hours of Lord of the Rings content and Return or Hobbit content in one sitting, or Tolkien content, I should say. But I don't really like The Hobbit. It has some cool stuff for the movie and whatnot, but it's not something like I personally am just overjoyed about seeing. Um, so we kind of cut it out of our list because we just realized, or I realized, it was really that bad. My wife doesn't really have a preference. She likes Tolkien as much as I do. Well, almost as much as I do. That's pretty hard to reach. Um, but she doesn't necessarily care about the story quality, whatever. She's just kind of the more normie of the two of us. Um, but with the recent news, which I'm going to go ahead and just pull up, I just wanted to kind of clarify the whole thing with Peter Jackson's involvement with The Hobbit. Like, oh, well, he did The Hobbit too. Yeah, but it was already too far in the process, from what I could find, that his involvement really was kind of last minute, not as much as like he was at the beginning of the entire project. Every part of it coming to life was his mark of approval and whatnot. Um, so don't be putting too much harsh on Peter Jackson. If it's other news that he like was completely in front of it or whatever, and he was totally excited to do it, then maybe a little bit harsher on him. But I don't think that was his goal per se. Um, but here we have CBR, which I'm not particularly a huge fan of, but they managed to cover it, and this is what I found. So Peter Jackson is involved in talks about Warner Bros. New Lord of the Rings movies. Director Peter Jackson and his writing partners are being kept in the loop with Warner Bros. And New Line about the new Lord of the Rings movies. One of his writing partners is his wife, as well as another one. I'm trying to remember her name. Um, they were announced earlier today. He hasn't announced that he will be directing the upcoming Lord of the Rings movies, but according to Deadline, which again I'm not really fond of, him and his writing partners, Fran Walsh, his wife, and Philippa Boyens are speaking to the studio and Embracer Group, which acquired the IP to rights. I'm going to go up so this is not as distracting. Um, you can go bye-bye. What acquired the IP rights to J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings in August 2022. Warner Bros. And Embracer have kept us in the loop every step of the way, Jackson, Walsh, and Boyan said in a statement. We look forward to speaking with them further to hear their vision of the franchise moving forward. Peter Jackson's notorious for his comments made during the creation of the Lord of the Rings films, where he talked about Tolkien and how it was his content and they didn't want to put any of their content in. It was all about him. And that made him gain a lot of grace from the fandom, a lot of goodwill. And from that goodwill, we wanted him to deal with the Amazon's Rings of Power series. But we also know that Amazon approached him, but then he's like, I mean, hey, this sounds really interesting. Send me a script and I'll let you know if this is something I want to be a part of. And then they never got back to him. Mostly, as assumed by pretty much everyone in the fandom, it was because they didn't want to give him the script. The script itself was very lackluster. We saw that. But it also wasn't sticking to Tolkien like Peter Jackson wanted to in the earlier films. The other option is they were trying to use Peter Jackson's name to draw people in. Like, oh, well, Peter Jackson's going to be a part of it, so it's going to be good. Like, let's bring everyone in. Come on in, guys. We got all this, X, Y, and Z. Kind of what I think they did with, I'm trying to remember his name. it's escaping me right now. The Tolkienian, I guess, historian or whatever. Shoot, it's on the tip of my brain, and I'm like just totally flagging. But I'll probably think of it later. But if you can think about it, leave it in the comments. I don't know why I'm losing my mind on this. But basically, they brought in a gentleman that was very, very well versed in Tolkien's life and his works and everything. And then he had some like minor differences, some major differences about what Amazon was doing with the series as opposed to what should have been done with the series. And he's like, that's not something Tolkien would approve. That's not something Tolkien would approve. Tom Shippey. I knew it was somewhere in there in my brain, but had to get it out. So Tom Shippey came in and was like, hey, you can't do this type of stuff with this. This isn't cool. Like, this isn't sticking to Tolkien's legacy and all that stuff. So what happened is that Tom Shippey had like some small interviews with people, and in the interviews he was just like, yeah, I don't think it's going the way that Tolkien would want. And then Amazon cut him. But they still used his name. So my personal opinion is that they wanted to do the same thing with Peter Jackson, but Peter Jackson was probably aware of Tom Shippey being cut, because Tom Shippey being on any Lord of the Rings set or any Tolkien work set, period, is a no-brainer. But in terms of like, I think Peter Jackson was just aware of what happened and then was like, I don't want to be used the way Tom Shippey was. I'm going to be very cautious. Go ahead and send me the script. If I like it, I don't mind working with you guys. Maybe they just wanted him to look at the script, and then they realized, well, maybe that'd be a bad idea because his particular reputation probably wouldn't do us much good. But in that regard, it's hard to tell, honestly. But thankfully, he didn't have anything to do with the Rings of Power, because the Rings of Power was a dumpster fire. And that's insulting the dumpster fires, to be honest. The whole story was so... I did so many videos on that, like for each of the episodes. If you really hate your life, go watch them. I don't hate my life enough to go back and watch my own videos on it. Like, it's that bad. I am looking forward to season 2, but I'm not looking forward to season 2 because, I potentially have a guest coming in to cover some of the content with me, and I really like his insight and knowledge on things. So if that happens, that happens. Be great. If not, then I'll be torturing myself alone and contemplating many dark deeds, because it's a struggle to get through those things. Um, but anyway, so back to this article. Warner Bros. And Embracer have kept us in the loop every step of the way. We look forward to speaking with them to hear the vision of the franchise keep moving forward. Warner Bros. And New Line have closed a multi-year deal with Embracer Group to create several new films set in Middle-earth. The new movies are not expected to be remakes of any previous films, which is good. You should not try to do Lord of the Rings again. But I'm not sure what they're planning on putting in for films, unless they're trying to do the exact same thing that Amazon did, which is make up a whole bunch of stuff. But it's whatever. So Warner Bros. Said during the announcement that the intention is to invite fans deeper into the cinematic world of Middle-earth. That's a good way to wipe out Disney. Because the Disney Warner Bros. Fight between Marvel and DC just keeps making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake. And Marvel's continuously making mistake after mistake after mistake. So when is that going to stop? Probably isn't. But in terms of what they're planning on doing with the overall broad scheme of things, I don't know, because they haven't really mentioned it. They just said we want to delve deeper into it, and that could mean pretty much anything. And they want to do it in a way that's unexplored on film. New Line originally adapted Tolkien's trilogy of The Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King into movies directed by Jackson from 2001 and 2003, or through 2003. Later, Tolkien's children's novel The Hobbit was adapted into its own trilogy of movies from 2012 to 2014, with original material added in to compensate for the book's much shorter length. They should have just made a shorter length film or films, and then run with that, because you could have done minor filler and focused on the core elements of the books. I feel confident I could probably write a screenplay that would have fit it better and would have kept it from being I'm trying to think of the proper term. Kept it from being too bloated, I guess. They added a lot of stuff like Tariel and Killy's relationship, Tariel in general. Thranduil's behavior was kind of over the top. Legolas not even being in the film, or should not have been in the film. You could have changed it quite a bit to stay strictly to the source material, and then added that slight filler in between. And I'm not talking like filler. I'm talking like little increments here and there to kind of flesh it out. You could have made potentially 2 movies, maybe even 3 movies that were just shorter each. Like instead of being 3 or 4 hours each, they could have been 2 hours. And you could have made a 6-hour total Hobbit film, maybe 2 3-hour films or something. I think 3 would have been okay if they were an hour and a half to 2 hours a piece. And they stuck to what the source material was, because like the book's not that long. It's like what, 300 pages? It's not that big. But you could have taken the early part of The Hobbit and added all the little adventure thingies, and then done the middle part where they kind of start out kind of the way they did at Beorn's place, and then moved to defeating Smaug, and then from Smaug you do the build up for the Battle of the Five Armies, because the Battle of the Five Armies is just like the best thing about The Hobbit. I mean, it's the part I cared about the most as a kid, and I still care about it because I just love big battles and stuff. But obviously, the dialogue, the growth, the relationship of the characters, the influence that they have on each other, that's all there. But they could have delved more into that kind of stuff more directly, rather than adding a whole bunch of extra filler funny stuff. Like, the funny stuff's okay to some extent if it's within the bounds, but it's supposed to be naturally silly, not this over the top silly. The Swedish Embracer Group acquired the film, game, merchandise, theme park attraction, and live show rights to The Lord of the Rings during a major purchasing spree. Personally, I'd love to have the rights to the games, because I want to redo the Battle for Middle-earth games and do like a Battle for Middle-earth 3, or remake 1 and 2. Take EA completely off of that and make them proper, and make them forever purchasable, as opposed to like being on disc and never being able to stream by them. That would be fantastic. But also all the other Lord of the Rings games. Oh my gosh, I would have so many ideas. Can you imagine the crowdfunding for that? Whoo, doggy. That'd be bloody amazing. But all that stuff, the theme park would be awesome if it was done right and not with the bloat. I'd love it if somebody bought just a bunch of territory and then had like Hobbiton in one area. Well, I guess the Shire, more or less, because the Shire's not. I mean, it's big, but it's not that big. You could probably condense it to Hobbiton and a couple other places. But you could like go around the Shire on a smaller scale, go into the Hobbit holes. Um, you could run into Bree. You could go to the Last Homely House. You could see Weathertop. Like, just get like a big chunk of territory somewhere and then just fill it in. Like, do what basically Disney and Universal are kind of doing in that regard, and just make a really cool theme park. It will never not be busy as long as you don't screw it up. Looking at you, Embracer Group, or whoever buys the rights from you, you can't screw it up. Like, if you just do it the right way, you will be drowning in money. People will throw their life savings away to participate in that. I mean, if you make it affordable, you'll get people coming all the time when you'll see just a massive increase of popularity. But knowing corporations, they're just not that smart, apparently. They also got the video game related brands Limited Run Games, ew, and Tripwire Interactive. I believe Tripwire Interactive did the Killing Floor games, if I recall. I don't remember. My brain's not that good. Those kind of small, tiny details. But Limited Run Games was really good as a company to buy things for until they went and fired somebody because of ideological beliefs that they didn't themselves hold, and that was really stupid of them. And that kind of killed their support. So, who was it that did it? Clownfish TV did a series of videos on that, so go check those out if you want to see more about that with Limited Run Games. I mean, Clownfish TV, Limited Run Games, you should find all their stuff. Shout out Clownfish. But it doesn't own the TV rights to Lord of the Rings because those are currently owned by Amazon, unfortunately. And if, for whatever reason, the Tolkien estate ever actually releases the rights to the Silmarillion for TV or movie, preferably TV because you need a lot of time, I could see a TV show doing it kind of like The Long Stretch, and then doing movies for the Silmarillion specifically on them. I mean, it probably would make more sense to do the movies, just do like The Children of Hurin or The Fall of Gondolin or Beren and Luthien. Like, those individually would make sense. You could potentially do some other ones here and there. There's some of the books would probably be really hard to adapt, though, due to the fact that their style is pretty Old English and more poetry based. It's not really a story per se. It's more like, hey, give me some historical facts, like the Calibeth and stuff like that. Like, I don't know how you'd be able to do like the Unfinished Tales or the Book of Lost Tales 1 and 2. Some of those other ones, they'd be a little harder to do. Let's see. The Rings of Power. Yeah, we don't care about the Rings of Power. Nobody cares about that. Oh, look at this. It's become the most watched show on Prime Video despite mixed reviews. You know what that means? That means a lot of people watched it. A lot of people hated it. But it's still the most watched show. Yet it's not in like the top like 10 video originals that Amazon has on their list. Like, you look at the banner and you scroll, you'd expect to be forefront. It's not anywhere close. Looking to do a review of Terminal List and probably Reacher at some point. Both of those were fantastic. I'll do like a short spoiler-free part at the beginning and then probably do spoilers to the other parts of it and just cover the things that I thought were good or not good about them. Mostly good, though. I definitely recommend them to people if you are interested. But yeah, that's what we have so far about that. I know the Quartering's already covered it. I'm pretty sure Friday Night Tights is covering it as we speak. And then probably a bunch of other places. But I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in for that. I hope Peter Jackson is the one they get to do the movies, because I don't know how you do on TV shows. I assume he'd probably fall in line with it. You just have to kind of deal with the different kind of cutouts and stuff. But hopefully his involvement would definitely make it more Tolkienian and that he would get full control, start from the beginning, and actually want to do it. Because I think after The Hobbit, he was probably a little frustrated, and I think also that he was probably frustrated with the Rings of Power, even if he didn't verbally state so. Um, and since no one else seems to be capable of doing it correctly, I'm sure he'd want to probably take him on, bring Tom Shippey back on, and do it the right way. Get the brand out there correctly, and just drown Warner Bros. In money. Like, I don't even think a Superman movie would do for Warner Bros. And DC what a good Lord of the Rings movie, or not Lord of the Rings, a Tolkien movie about something could do. These will probably be a bit more filler, though, due to the fact that it's not based off the Lord of the Rings, because they're not redoing the movies, and then it's not going to be Hobbit, because they're not redoing the movies. Um, it'll probably be more filler, so it'll be a little bit more difficult, but it could be really nice. I mean, we could see the part where Aragorn subdues the other more evil factions of the Haradrim and Rune and stuff like that. I'm kind of excited to see what could come out of it, because I mean, I just want to see more. I want to see more Middle Earth, more Tolkien. I'd love to see the Silmarillion. That's just not going to happen, unfortunately, because these people are jerks. I mean, if we're going to burn everything to the ground with Rings of Power, you might as well just let the Silmarillion rights come out and let somebody actually who cares about it take the reins, and then just make it Tolkien, ignore everything else. But that's just my 2 cents. What do you guys think? Please like, subscribe, comment, and definitely the best and most important part, share the video. Your guys' support means a lot, and sharing it definitely helps a bit. We're just shy of 100 subscribers. Be nice to get a couple more, just a few, so you guys can have other people also enjoy the content. And hoping to get my internet fixed here in a couple days, because it stopped my streaming going on, because IPs are terrible and don't deserve to live. Anyway, thanks guys for hanging out. Look forward to more videos coming along down the pipeline. And remember, my friends, walk in the light.